everybody, welcome back to the Overwater interview series. Today's interview is with Paul Geary, who is a bass player who's worked with artists such as George Michael, Nick Kershaw and Lisa Stansfield. Paul is also a lecturer at the Academy of Contemporary Music just outside of London here in the UK. In the interview we're going to be talking about how you can really excel at music college if you're studying right now, Paul's tips for posture when playing bass, of course why he chooses to play Overwater Basses. Enjoy. Where are you? Are you in a hotel?
No, I've just arrived at Bury St Edmunds, and I'm at a place. The show tonight is at the Apex. Really nice. I've just got off the bus, gone in, showered up and stuff, and it's a combination of we've got a bus and then we've got some day rooms and stuff like that. This is going to be show. Yeah, I think this is we've got 11 in a row.
Wow, on the bounce
without a day off. I know, and it's like full show, but it's great. It's going really good. We're always really looked after and with Nick and stuff. So yeah, it's going really good. Great fun.
Yeah, so this is with Nick Kershaw for anyone watching. To put that in perspective, that's pretty unheard of. The most back-to-back shows I've ever done with an artist on a tour is 5, maybe, and that was fairly like, really, are we doing this? Just because they end up blowing their voices out, it's difficult.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's holding up really well. I mean, he's never all these. I mean, this year for me, I auditioned for his band in '98. Was his comeback album. I've been lucky enough to record 4 albums with him. In 25 years, he's never had any problem with his voice, and we knew it was coming because we did a spring tour through Europe. And then we've been into festival season. So we knew this was coming up, and it's a bit like a marathon, you just have to pace yourself. I mean, it helps when everything's sold out. It's just such a great vibe. So I think that's what's keeping us going at the moment.
Jump into the basses straight away. So you've got 2 Overwaters, is that right?
I've actually got 3. I've got a hybrid jazz 5-string fretless, and then I've got standard jazz 4-string.
Okay.
But the one I'm kind of tending to use a lot on this tour, or pretty much all the time, is my first Overwater bass, which was a Perception, which is now kind of the Progress. So I'm using that at the moment. That was my first Overwater. It's had a few kind of alterations. I got Chris a few years ago to fit a ramp in between, the neck and the bridge pickups, purely because my main bass has always been, I suppose, my Stingray, and the pickup is, my hand is used to be in there, so I got Chris to fit a ramp a while back. I've not got loads of basses. All my students got more basses than me. Everybody's got more basses than me. But they have to earn their keep. The Overwater is just so reliable. I always go for it because some of the others, they've got their quirkiness about them. They're not going to let me down. But the Overwater just feels so solid.
So that ramp allows you to play further back towards the bridge, like you would on a Stingray.
The pickup configuration on the Perceptions hash Progress, if you go, that pickup is a little bit too far back to the bridge for me. So the ramp allows me the sweet spot for just the tension of the strings. It just feels good.
And it doesn't give you any issues with popping. I was talking to Trevor Barry last week, and he's got a ramp on his new Overwater. And they put him a little notch out just at the end of the neck, so that you can kind of dig in with your fingers when he's popping. That you don't find that to be an issue with playing with ramps?
No, not really. There seems to be a kind of enough space and enough for me anyway. It seems to be okay. I've not had any issues with that.
Are there some common faults or common bits of advice you find yourself giving students about? Whether that would be, strap height or posture when they're sitting, when they're standing and playing. Are there some common you can mention there?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, I get so many students, if it's like the first time they'll come in and they won't have a strap on. They're saying, well, I worked on this stuff you gave me, but on the gig, then you dig a little bit deeper and you find out that they're not practicing with their strap on, or years and years ago there was a real glut of kind of wearing your bass down at your ankles. When you stand up, and sit down, the angle doesn't change for me. Nothing changes.
Yeah.
And that's because I practice with my strap on and the bass at the right angle. Because I went through that. It was like, yeah, killing this in my practice time. And then on the gig, it's like, and I'm going, oh no, and it feels different. And it's all about posture and the angle. So I would say always practice with your strap on. It depends what you're doing. It depends what band you're doing and what you're involved in. But 90% of the time, I think that is a big consideration why you can't play some things as well as you can when you're practicing at home or whatever. But as well as I do, it's like you go through levels. You've got your level of practicing at home, and then you've got the rehearsal with the band and the other musicians, and then the gig is entirely different again from just a playing point of view. And like now, like with this, I'm 6 shows into stuff that I'm familiar with, although there is some new songs from a new album that Nick's putting out. You get played in. You've just got to watch it, because then if it's a long stretch, you get back and some other things are hurting. I've got quite a lot of reading stuff to do when I get back. I've got to get back into that zone a little bit,
Yeah, 100%. Can you tell us about some other artists you've worked with? I'm particularly interested, personally. I can see you've worked with Gabrielle before.
Yeah, we're talking like miming back in the early 90s. Okay. There was a whole when I got back from the States in 1990, I basically went back into my old job because I didn't do any music at school. I kind of left school at 16 and I trained as a graphic designer, and that was my job up until 20. And then I basically got involved in the church, and that's how I started playing. They helped me get to America, and I was in America for 4 years. I went straight back into my old job. Then I phased out that, went and worked at a music shop, and then started auditioning, and then got working with very, very fine music director called Mike Stevens, the MD for Take That. And that broke me into a whole network of people with Steve Washington, Velroy Bailey, Frank Tonto. And it came out of a mime. Oh boy. And I think it was her first, I think it must have been her debut, but we're talking like, 30 years ago. It's a long time. I mean, when did you start working for Gabrielle?
I've been doing it about 8 or 9 years now.
Right.
Jesse, the MD, and I were just talking about it in rehearsals this week. We've both been there a long time, and there's three new people on this tour.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, do you tend to change personnel a lot, or is it just who's available, or different album, different feel, or?
No, they're not changing it specific. It's just as people come and go. The guitarist who had been doing it was out with Zach Abel, so he had a different tour in, and just people move on to other gigs. But it's fun, man. It's nice. It's nice now when you get into rehearsals and you look at the list and you go, I've only got 3 songs to learn. That's fine.
Yeah. Pressure's up. Yeah, exactly. I saw you play at the Meraki Festival.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that's when we kind of said hi. That must have been about 2018, I think, or maybe before. I can't remember. So I suppose what I'm pertaining to, when I came back, my contacts and what I was doing around the same time was Lisa Stansfield. It was out of the gospel and the church thing for me, because that was my whole background. So there was a real network of gospel musicians, as I'm sure there is now, although I'm kind of out of those circles now. But that's how it all started, really, for me. And that's where there was, I remember doing a tour with Fix, D-Side, Blazing Squad, Liberty X, Hearsay. But the Gabrielle thing was definitely a mime.
You teach at ACM?
Yeah, I've been at ACM since 1996, right? But I set that up with Phil Brooks, Bruce Dickinson, I forget who the drummer was at the time. And because it's always been like 10 minutes down the road, Guildford, I live in a village just outside of Guildford, near Farnham, Tongham. I've just always been involved with the school. So sometimes I've been really involved, and then other times I haven't. At the moment, they've just revalidated their degree for many years now, I'll drop into the bass and I'll do all the bass, and I look after all of that. But I coach the band, the whole bands, so it's more kind of performance workshop orientated.
Okay, so with all those years of seeing students come through the doors, it's quite interesting actually talking about the gospel thing, because it seems to me that most of the pros that I meet, the young guys coming through, have either come through the church scene. Half of the guys that have ever worked in the Gabrielle band have come out of that church and gospel scene, and then the other half are coming through establishments like ACM or the conservatoires or BIM and all these kind of places. What's the kind of common theme of the guys and girls that you see at college, the ones that then go on to have careers in the industry? Are there common themes to their attitude, to their playing? What kind of makes a standout student for you?
I think it's that guy or girl that really wants to learn and just be that person to draw stuff out of you. I find a lot of students, you know, they will listen, they will play, they will have their thing going, but it's almost like you've got to be that slightly annoying person who kind of asks the question, maybe at the end of the class, and kind of go, look, how did you do this? And what should I do personally? And I think it's those people essentially that go the extra mile. That sounds a bit cliche, but you know, you work hard, and if you work and you work hard, you will get your heart's desire, you know, and there's no shortcuts. If there was, you know, I'd know it, you would know it. And I think it's that diligence. It's interesting. I remember at that Meraki festival, I had a guy watching our set. He was playing for All Saints, and then I thought, I know this face, and it was one of the ACM students that had gone on, and I'd worked with a lot with him, and it was just so lovely that he'd gone on to do that. Another guy just put a post on, you might know, a guy called Caleb Wilson, who again has come up through the gospel thing, but he's got a gig with CBeebies doing a band for children's television. I thought, this is excellent. So I think in essence, there's no shortcut to anything. I think it's just purely hard work. And, you know, I meet some students when I'm around in the corridor, and it's kind of, hey, how you doing? And I've just been for this audition. Oh, great. How did it go? Oh, I didn't get it. You know, and I went, oh, you know, it'll be fine. Yeah, but, you know, I just didn't get it, and been working at this. How many auditions have you done? Oh, it's my second one. And it's like, you know, people zone in on like, oh, so you did that thing with George, or you did that thing with Nick Kershaw, or you've done that thing with Chris Norman, Chris Rea, all of these things. And you do build up, you know, after over 30 years of doing this, you do build that up, but they don't know the amount of stuff that I went for that I didn't get.
Yeah.
You're too old, you're too young, you're too short, you're too fat, you got no hair, you've not got the look, you need that. Maybe you need to do that, or that doesn't. You've got to put your armor on. And when an arrow comes your way, you can deflect it and kind of go, right, okay, I didn't get that one, but there is one. I'm going to stick at this. And I think a lot of people don't, because it's hard. It's hard getting knocked back. You think, well, why? I love this stuff. There's been loads of stuff. I remember even with Nick, some of the stuff that I've gone up for. I remember one particular time going and auditioning for Go West. And it was Richard Brook who'd asked me down, and then I met Richard Drummy and Peter Cox, and it went well. And I knew the keyboard player, Lyndon, in the audition. Lyndon said, well, I haven't heard those songs played like that since Pino did it, Pino Palladino. And I'm thinking, you didn't have to say that, and that is a massive compliment.
Yeah.
I walk out the door, I wait a couple of days, Peter Cox, lovely, Richard Drummy rings me up and said, Paul, thanks for coming down. This was probably 15 years ago, maybe. And it really hit me hard, because I'd led to believe, well, this is it, I've got this in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
And then the flip side of that is John Maul, another really great music director, calls me up and said, right, we've got this tour and we're putting you into it, and it's with Paul Young. So I thought, oh, this is just fantastic, you know. So consequently, just a side story to that, he said, you know, we've had a couple of guys come in and do this, and don't worry about the fretless bass and the octave. You know, some people just use an octave pedal and a 4-string. That'll absolutely be fine. And I looked at him and went, what are you saying to me? I would literally get hung, drawn and quartered if I went out on stage with Paul Young playing Wherever I Lay My Hat without the fretless bass. You're joking, right? You know, and he was really serious. And I said, no, that's not going to happen, you know. And anyway, consequently, it was a good talk. Getting back to the point, I think you've just got to be strong and try and take it on the chin and just be realistic and keep going.
And like one door closes, another one opens, like the example you just
gave. Yeah, it's a cliche thing, but it really does. I think it's stickability and just really, really working hard at what you do. And also, it's okay to do other things as well. You know, I think as a young player, really close to this, I work with a lot of young players, but I've got 2 human beings that I made who are going through the same thing. You know, one is a drummer and one is a vocalist. And Jack, my son, he's been for the last nearly 2.5 years with Maisie Peters, who's managed by Ed Sheeran, and he's been playing these amazing shows. But when he comes back, okay, what's going to happen now? Because I'm not letting you, he lives at home still, I'm not letting you sit at home waiting for when Mosey goes out. You will be going out and doing your functions and anything else that comes your way.
Yeah.
Alice is in her last year at BIM in Brighton. Jack went all the way through ACM. Alice did a couple of years at ACM on the diploma program, but she just wanted to go a different route to her brother. She just wanted to get out and do that thing. So she's singing, she's gigging around town. Just really recently, we got a call from, it was Nick's tour manager, actually. His best friend works in the BBC, and they wanted a montage for the beginning of the Women's World Cup for BBC. So they said, would Alice do it? So it was like Alice was at home on break from uni. So we recorded a vocal. And yeah, I mean, we did The Greatest Showman and they wanted a stripped down acoustic version. And I could not believe it. We were sat there, Sarah and I, glued to the opening, and she comes on, yeah, that's her. And there's a big montage. And then Gabby Logan at the end of it says, oh yeah, we've got a young singer, 19-year-old Alice Geary. And it was just, last year, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but it's been massive for me. And you know, Jack came to me, so that was Alice, Women's World Cup. I thought, this is just amazing. What a great opportunity. And then Jack, Dad, I've got 5 nights in London. Oh, great. Where? Wembley Stadium. So, and I'm going, I said, this is fantastic, you know, but you do realise you're probably not going to be doing this every year, you know. And then he said, Ed's sorted out some tickets, you know, he'd love you to come to the show. Ed Sheeran was part of ACM for a while as well. I do remember him. He didn't last long. I think it was probably nearly a year, but probably not quite. So we trundled off to Wembley Stadium and thinking, oh, this is so lovely. And then we would grab, you know, went through and, oh, okay, yeah, no, come this way, blah, blah, blah. Went through. We were in the Royal Box. And then I'm watching my son play drum. Yeah, it's been incredible. Yeah. I mean, I never went down that route of, I've always been very free with Jack and Alice in what they wanted to do. It was never about pushing them into music. I've steered them. Jack, when he was young, probably about the same age as you've got 2 of you now? Or?
Well, we've got a 4-year-old and then one coming in January, yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, I used to take Jack with me all the time. You know, I used to check with the tour manager and he'd come out on a short, you know, run, or, you know, and somebody else in the band would do that. So I think they've been brought up around that environment. Somebody would say, oh, well, you know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It was inevitable. But they could have been anything they want to be.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's how it's turned out.
It shows them that it's possible. I can remember the hardest thing about me deciding to be a musician was kind of working out how you did it, or what it even looked like. So I guess for those guys, they've got you as a great example of this is what it looks like. And like you're saying, you might spend 6 months of the year playing stadiums on a world tour, but what are you going to do for the other 6 months?
And it's really interesting because Just getting back to Caleb, I noticed a post on his feed. I don't often chime into a lot of stuff on social media. You know, I'll like it or put something up, but I felt compelled to just steam in on this. And it was that very same thing where you meet musicians and it's going, hey, Dan, hey, how you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing, mate? What are you doing? Yeah. Yeah. What, yeah. Oh, you moved away. But yeah. What? Yeah. So you're busy? You're busy? And it's like, there's a real mental well-being pressure that you're putting on that person. I chimed in and basically said, look, it's okay to do other things. And they're going, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, let's look at a couple of examples. Let's look at Ralph Roll, who plays drums for Chic.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a great restaurant and he loves it.
Yeah.
Let's look at Marcus Miller. Awesome. He's got a property company that he actually runs and he's really into that. And it's like, yeah, but you've got to do music, right? And it's, well, you're not serving two masters. You're doing two things that you're passionate about. And that's okay. So it's okay to bump into that person in the street and go, oh, what are you doing, Pete? You must be out on tour. Well, no, I'm not actually. I'm doing some stuff at ACM. I'm doing this other stuff. And then after this, I'm going up to my allotment because I've got to kind of dig up my potatoes. Well, yeah, but I want the rock and roll story. You know, I want this. Well, I'm not going to give you that because I'm not actually doing that. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, I mean, Caleb's a great example of Caleb's now doing Emily Sandé.
Yes.
So
yes.
You're talking about a guy on a massive gig, had a really good career. You may imagine it's all rock and roll, but he's also working really hard on his YouTube channel, on his social media. It's important to do as much as you can. You don't just wait for the phone to ring. Mate, thank you so much for today. That's awesome. I'll put links to Jack and it's Alice, isn't it?
Yeah, Alice Geary and Jack Geary. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put links both of their social profiles and stuff in the YouTube notes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, you take care. Bye for now.